Good morning, afternoon, or evening, and welcome back to Ventura's studio. Today we're going to be building this Airfix 1/48 scale World War II truck. First impressions is this kit is fantastic, if I'm completely honest. It's not the most expensive kit, but wow, the detail is just brilliant. I'm going to be building it in the style of the RAF. You can build it in the style of the British Army if you want to. I'll be painting it in RAF blue rather than khaki. I've seen some reference pictures of it being in blue, and I thought it would make a nice little change, so that's what we'll be doing. Together some of the undercarriage to start, and again, lush amount of detail on this part of the model, which is always going to be hidden. And really struggling to get this exhaust pipe attached and having no idea where it goes. I think about here, but I'm not sure. Still thinking. I'm going to commit with it being there. I think there's enough detail to suggest that's where it should go, and by the time that I put the thin cement on and meld it to the plastic, it's going to look like that is exactly where it should go. Putting together some more of these parts, and you can see the detail underneath is just extraordinary. Starting to put together the cab then, so I'm going to try and do this as a sub-assembly itself, and you can see just the detail is just fantastic. Nice bit of exhausts, your gear stick and seats. Bit more work on the engine here, putting the timing belt on. And then back to the truck bed at the back. I'll be sealing this up. I don't need it to be open for an access panel as it's going in a diorama. That probably wouldn't quite make sense for. And a bit more with the interior here with the dashboard and the steering wheel column. And here we go then, so I'll be painting this in RAF blue, and I've already started with a coat of black primer, and then just going over with a light coat of RAF blue on the entire chassis. Likewise on the word panels and the truck bed itself, all of this is going to be painted in RAF blue. My understanding from my research is that basically everything that came from the factory, so every single metal face, supposedly was painted in the single colour. They wouldn't have taken the time, especially during the height of war, to individually create separate pieces. Everything would have effectively been put together, shipped out, all in one colour, so they don't have to change the assemblies, which makes it a lot easier when you're putting together a scale model of it. Obviously that doesn't correlate with things like steering wheels or dashboards to an extent. You can see me putting a black coat on the dashboard there, but that's more for decals later on. And the engine bay here, this is actually olive drab. It's quite hard to see in this footage, and I apologise for that, but this is a bit more of an olive colour. So I believe RAF and British in general, mechanical parts such as engines would come in oxide green. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments of the actual colouring, but some sort of green which is much better for heat protection. So that's what I've replicated here, and just gone over it with some bits of dry brushing with steel colour just to highlight some extra aspects. And the timing belt, of course, is in a nice rubber blue. The seats I've done in khaki colour, that's just for the cushions. Just trying to make sure I don't get it on the metal backing. These seats look really comfy, right? And that's me now just sealing in with the first gloss coat, which will allow us to do our decals and then weathering. Everything looks a little bit more shiny. So to kick off our interior weathering, this is going to look a little bit interesting, but I've left the black primer on for now. And I'm going over the truck bed with an initial coat of wood brown. So this is going to cover it entirely, acting like an almost undercoat. And what we're going to do, we're going to use some of this chipping medium. So we're going to cover it in chipping fluid, and then we're going to give it its top coat of RAF blue. This is intermediate blue from Mr. Akius Colors, and it is one of my favorite paints. It's such a great finish on it. So we've got the chipping down, we've got the top coat down, and now just applying a little bit of water, and we should be able to get some nice chipping effects on the hatches and some scuff marks from where either equipment or boots have been in and out of this truck bed. I was really happy with how this came out, and this is one of my first proper forays into chipping, and I was pretty happy with it. I know a lot of this you could probably achieve with pigments, but I was happy like this. And using the end of just a regular HB pencil, I decided to add what looked like the bare metal steel from the column. And doing my first bit of khaki drab for the canvas top of the truck bed. Back over to the engine bay now, and this is applying the first set of pin washes to most of the model and panel lines. This is homemade, so I'm using a bit of Hull Red mixed with NATO Black, and these are all acrylic based. I tried to not use oil or enamel strippers and things like that, so try and keep it all to either water or alcoholic acrylics. I'll just get a bit of that on and then try and take a little bit off with a cotton bud, just to give it a little bit of pop. Adding quite a bit of it into the engine, fan, exhaust pipe. Should really get better at knowing the names of engines and things like that. And likewise a dirt wash for the footwells of the truck, and just taking as much of that off as possible. Added a bit more of that pin wash then around, just to give it a bit of pop on the lines. And then stippling in a bit of dry mud to the footwells. So this is a bit of a mixed job, so I decided to initially do some of the dashboard with white drops, and then I was going to paint black on. This did come with some decals, however I had a bit of a decal disaster, which I'm not sure I captured on camera, but we'll find out later if I did. And adding a bit more of that dust effect look to the inside of the canvas tent. You can see where I've added some Tamiya putty to the joins. I was pretty unhappy with how the joins turned out. They were a little bit rough, so I had to sand down quite a lot, but I mean in the finished model it's not too bad, but you can see in this clip here there is a bit of disconnect, and I'm sure I'll point it out just in a second. But overall pretty happy with how all these colours worked. But yeah, just maybe a bit of tightening up on my skill. There we go, you can see it there. Bit of cracking, but will let me off, right? Taking all the wheels off then, one by one. Pop, pop, pop. Nice, bit of satisfying clicking action there. Alright, now we have wheels. How do you think that? The first bit of editing you've ever seen on this channel, right? Just blasting the center of these with some intermediate blue, and then once it's dried, adding a bit of camo putty, and then going around the exterior with some rubber black. So the most effective method that I've seen for really clean cut colours, and I was pretty happy with how it turned out. And then just sponging on some flat earth paints. And then washing it with a bit of dust and dirt wash. Just taking off as much as possible. You know, the airfields in the UK, while they're grassy, are also very dusty. Yeah, planes up in the air, on and off. I'm trying to capture it in probably the height of summer as well, or at least into autumn. So putting together some of the exterior here. And again, it all just fits together fantastically well. To lift up a bit of the engine bay to get that in, but it worked. And then just putting together the engine compartments now. You'll see in a sec that I obviously didn't prime and paint all of the engine itself while it was on sprues or anything like that, so we are now getting some bare plastic on, but it's not too much to worry about. We are going to be able to paint it all. I know there's some people that put together the entire model and then paints it, but you know, I was trying to sort of delve into the idea of sub-assemblies and then bring it all together in a final clip. See me putting together some more of the extra detail here, and there is just so much detail to be had on such a simple model, but such a detailed one too. Airfix really smashed it with this. Getting the doors on now too. They were a little bit of a janky fit, but that is my fault, not Airfix's. Alright, so just going to go over and prime the bare plastic here. I've just very loosely put in some masking tape into the centre. I'm not too worried about it going over the wheel bays on the outside, as we are just going to paint it all up in just a sec too. And likewise here on the rear truck bed, just getting the RAF blue onto the wood and then getting that over the cab as well. And there we go, the masking worked out perfectly. And again, fantastic. I am notoriously bad at masking, so the fact that this worked is a miracle. And just painting this in intermediate blue. With all that done, it's time to get the next layer of gloss on, and this is to go over the entire model and give us a base for the decals. Hey, here's the disaster which I spoke about earlier. So this was about to go on nicely, and then I tried just a bit too hard to get it perfect. And that point there we go. It all came off. Good job. This is what you tune in for. Just fantastic model making and just great techniques. I guess the only technique you can learn here or anywhere on this video is how to get a decal off your fingers. The other decals, however, all went on fantastically well using some micro sol and micro set, and there's something just super clean about these ones that I was really happy with. Just taking off the excess fluid on each one and then just leaving it to set for a bit of time. And there's the micro set going on just now. Feels like there's just the right amount of decals for this. Decals? Decals? I find it really interesting. I've seen some YouTubers like Mac Models call them decals. And I feel like that's the correct way because, well, there's people a lot more experienced than me that know what they're talking about. But I've always called them decals. Maybe that's the American way, and I grew up on American media, despite being very, very firmly British. So, anyone in the comments, please let me know. Is it decal or decal? How do you say it? Moving on to the windows then. I am a massive, massive fan of not having to do clear plastic. I always find a way of messing it up. Just learned this technique of applying the masking tape to the plastic, cutting it out around it, and then putting it back on, which usually creates a pretty good fit. And it does work out for this model. But yeah, I am just not a huge fan of doing it in general. If you want to check out my Spitfire video, there is a good part of how I explain how I do my masking. All of this is done by myself, no pre-masking kits. Exterior weathering, and I think this is probably the happiest that I've been post weathering, apart from the Spitfire model, which you can see also on the channel in the same diorama that this one's going into. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the skill set's just sort of coming together a bit more, and the weathering, I'm really putting on some of that pin wash I mentioned earlier, so a bit of hull red mixed with some NATO black to give it a bit of burnt metal look, and also acting as the pin wash itself, trying to take off as much as possible here. Just trying to get that in all the panel lines. As a bit of not only highlight for panels but also dirt, and a bit of steel scuff marks along here. So starting off with a layer of brown to for almost like the exposed bare metal, and then topping that off with a bit of steel, so we can just see almost like chipping effect, but it's the 3 layers of paint that we're going for here. So you've got the very undercoat, which is usually like an oxide brown or steel color. We've got the silver from the exposed metal, and then we've got the top coat of paint. And adding in a bit of flat earth mixed with buff as a bit of dirt or dust look. Going over the canvas top with a bit of lightening first, almost to give it a look that it's been sun bleached, and that's just the base color mixed with a little bit of white to give it a lighter look. And the same way that we're doing here, so taking that intermediate, need to get rid of that bubble, taking that intermediate blue, adding a bit of off-white, getting that mixed in, and then giving it a bit of post shade to blend everything in to a single colour. Almost like a filter actually, not a post shade. And that's it, pretty much all good to go. Now all we need to do is actually assemble it. And the one gripe that I'd probably have at all is that the side windows come as an all-in-one piece. So if you wanted to have the door open, you wouldn't really be able to have the windows on it. I did try and cut one out, however it was going really, really badly, so I decided against it, and to just have the doors closed. But yeah, that would be my only thing, is to have an extra piece for the doors to be open. But this clips together so nicely, and it's a real clean looking model when it is complete. We're looking good so far. I think we're missing some wheels though. Oh, we're also missing the back flap. Back flap? Here are completed wheels. And for any potential eagle-eyed among you, you may have seen that it has got some great depressions on these wheels, almost like the weight is sinking it into the earth. However, my fantastic brain did not envisage how the depression needs to obviously face down, but there are very specific holes in the tyres so that they attach to the chassis. So you can see me manipulating them. I've had to cut out the holes almost entirely, and then I realised I could just stick them to the body without using the fixing points. So that's what I did. Took all those fixing points off and just got the wheel in as and how I possibly could. And it worked out well. Yeah, I was pretty happy. I think the front right wheel from that angle, now it's bottom left, is a little bit squiff, but it's not noticeable at all. And to just leave it to dry a little bit there before doing the canvas ropes or canvas securings, fixings at the back. And I think and with that bit done, we are now good to go to the showcase. Alright, so there it is, the finished 148 World War II 15-weight truck, Bedford truck, done in RAF blue. A little bit different to the scheme from the Airfix kit, but I think it just, so much detail, I think it just adds a lot of character and really makes it look like it belongs to the RAF rather than to the British Army. But nonetheless, I'm not sure if it's an fully accurate paint job, but it looks great. And I hope you think it looks great too. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Until next time.